This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The entire world was silent, and only the blue crystal flower was free of dust as it quietly fell. The darkness in the sky gradually dispersed under the light of this flower. Morongju's figure was also revealed. It turned out to be a blue light on his forehead. When he focused his eyes, he couldn't see the shape of this blue light. He only felt that it was extremely beautiful and spiritual, as if it had a very high level of intelligence. Jiang Churan's silver blade Gomang was in front of him, gradually recovering its spirit qi. The earth-shattering blow just now had also consumed a lot of Gomang's spirit qi. This kind of divine weapon had its own spirit qi and could absorb the energy between heaven and earth to recover itself, just like a martial artist breathing and cultivating. Tianxi lowered his head, his eyes devoid of any expression. However, Jiang Churan could feel a pair of bright eyes staring at him, and this feeling came from the blue flower of light. The I clan's totem, Tianxi, descended to the mortal world in such a form? Jiang Churan asked. Humph. Tianxi snorted coldly and replied, I am an invisible existence. As for the totems, Yutong and I are merely using each other. That's all. Oh. That's a fresh theory. I'm all ears, Jiang Churan said in surprise. There's no need for that. Tianxi laughed coldly, the Red Moon City Lord has raised the level of a duel to the level of intelligence. Now I believe it. You're just trying to stall for time so that your silver thread ancient rhinoceros horn can recover as much power as possible. I can't rule out that possibility, but I'm really curious, Jiang Churan said with a smile. Then, bring your curiosity to the grave. Tianxi replied coldly. Tianxi stood silently in the air. All of a sudden, the ground began to tremble, as if 10,000 horses were galloping. The ancient, decaying buildings in the surroundings crumbled one by one, and one after another, gigantic figures walked out from them. It was as if they had come from a country of death, and were resurrected. Jiang Churan's expression changed drastically. The hundreds and thousands of huge figures were of different shapes and races, but the only thing they had in common was that each of them had a pair of blood-red moon eyes. Moreover, the strong aura on their bodies indicated that they were all martial sovereigns of the 9 heavens. An illusion. Jiang Churan's expression turned serious. The illusion in front of him was completely real. The aura of each lunar pupil was different. Even if he knew it was fake, he couldn't treat it as a non-existent existence. A ray of golden light shot down, shining upon all of the moon eyes. Tianxi raised his spear high, and the blue light was filled with a holy aura. After Morongju's physical body was injured, Tianxi understood that it was impossible to defeat Jiang Churan with just the strength of his physical body. He could only use his own strength. He opened his mouth slightly and softly said, kill. The lunar pupil elites who were illuminated by the golden light were filled with fighting spirit. They roared and charged forward, wanting to tear Jiang Churan into pieces. Cold sweat trickled down Jiang Churan's forehead. This scene was too realistic. If he did not face the enemy and was killed, he would definitely die. If he faced the enemy and was caught in this endless battle, he would only die. In his desperation, he calmed down. The silver blade Gomang in his hand turned back into a hollow ball and he held it in his palm. His eyes were slightly closed as if he was in deep thought. The blue light on Morongju's forehead flickered imperceptibly. He seemed to be very confused about Jiang Churan's actions. Swish. Shwa shwa. Jiang Churan's left hand suddenly patted Gomang, making a chi-chi sound. Every time he patted Gomang, the shadow of the ancient rhinoceros would appear. Woof. Buzz. Whoosh. The speed of his smacking began to increase, containing a certain rhythm. At this moment, the battle roars of the countless moon pupil powerhouses seemed to have disappeared. Only the dull shwa-shwa sound was left between the heaven and earth, knocking on everyone's heart. Tianxi's face fell, and the blue light on his forehead flickered unstably like a flame, as if in disbelief. At the same time, the countless powerful warriors also stopped in their tracks. Tianxi struggled to open his mouth. You can actually break my illusion? Jiang Churan smiled bitterly and said, back then, I had battle with Yutong and I saw the power of his illusion. After that, I spent a long time thinking about how to break it. Finally, I found this technique, breaking the illusion with sound. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to test it out. Thank you for helping me today. So you fought with the Moon Eye before, no wonder you're on guard. The shock on Tianxi's face gradually disappeared, and he regained his usual calm. But do you know what the strongest state of illusion is? Jiang Churan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly realized that something was amiss and said in a serious tone, isn't it changing heaven and earth, changing time and space? The corners of Tianxi's lips curled up slightly, revealing a cruel smile. The highest realm of illusion is to turn illusion into reality. The blue light on his forehead suddenly bloomed, and he shouted, these 10 million moon pupil powerhouses are real existences that have walked out of my illusionary technique. The dagger axe immediately slashed down and said, kill. The moon pupil powerhouse who had all stopped suddenly trembled. A shocking roar spread out, layer by layer, instantly breaking the knocking sound on the gomang, and the sound of fighting shook the world. Jiang Churan's expression changed drastically. This scene was too mythical for him to believe. However, there was no time to think at this moment. The disdainful mien could no longer stop these experts who were like death warriors. Gomang instantly turned into a silver blade and slashed at the hundreds and thousands of moon pupil experts. Bang! The first martial emperor powerhouse who charged forward was instantly beheaded by his blade. Blood spurted out like a fountain. The blade light didn't decrease and continued to move behind him, killing a large number of people. Then, the silver blade turned to his side and flicked out several silver symbols, which immediately turned into 9 sword postures containing 9 different sword intents. They slashed out in front and behind him respectively, and blood shot into the sky. Jiang Churan's expression was grave. He struck the silver blade with a few sword techniques and it instantly turned into thousands of light and shadows that filled the sky. It was as if a barrier had been opened up wherever it passed. However, the moon pupil experts were not afraid of death at all. They charged forward in waves and entered the silver light, only to be chopped into pieces. At that moment, Yunxiao was crazily absorbing all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures in the altar. He took out almost all the resources and swallowed them. The demon dragon was shocked. If you break through to the martial supreme realm by force, the heaven-earth law will gather and you'll explode. Unlike the surging primordial energy in his body, Yunxiao's face was unusually calm, as if he had entered a meditative state. He opened his mouth slightly and said, you always like to say some harsh words. You might really be right once. I know better than anyone else the risk of breaking through to the martial supreme realm by force. However, if I don't do it, I'll have no chance of survival. The demonic dragon swallowed his saliva with difficulty and said, how could that be? I can see that Jiang Churan is handling it with ease. Even if he can't save you, it shouldn't be a problem for him to deal with it until the end of time and the closing of the world. Yunxiao's eyes rippled as he shook his head slightly and said, it's no use. Jiang Churan has already fallen into Tianxi's illusion. If we can't break out of it, we can only continue killing him like this until he dies. An illusion? Didn't you turn the void into reality? The demonic dragon asked in shock. Could it be that these moon pupil powerhouses are all fake? Of course it's fake. Yunxiao said solemnly. How could there be a divine ability to turn illusionary into real in this world? That's something only the God who created this world could do. But the demonic dragon was shocked. I saw it through your lunar eyes when my soul merged with yours. I am a real existence. Can't even your lunar eyes see through me? My strength is too low, Yunxiao said. I can't dig out all the power of the moon pupil. If it awakens, although it can fight against Tianxi, I'm afraid you and I will be completely wiped out. The demonic dragon no longer spoke as it quietly accumulated its strength. Today's battle was probably the most dangerous one in its life. If it lost, it would be doomed forever. Jiang Churen's heart sank as the battle progressed. Not only did he see these experts, but the team seemed to be expanding as well. Corpses piled up in front of him like mountains. From time to time, they would be blasted into dust by huge attacks. The materialized void swan and I, is there really such a thing as materialized void in this world? Jiang Churen was overwhelmed with shock. Although there was no danger in the short term under the silver glow, it was only a matter of time before he was finished. Moreover, Tianxi was still watching him from the side, waiting for him to reveal his weakness. The situation was extremely dangerous. Whether he's real or fake, at least this Tianxi in front of me is real. Jiang Churen thought about it and held the silver blade in front of him. The silver light that penetrated the heaven and earth all gathered and an extremely strong chi activity rotated on the silver blade. The giant shadow of the ancient rhinoceros appeared in the sky and slowly descended. Tianxi's eyes narrowed in shock and he hurriedly made a few hand seals in front of him. The light on his dagger axe grew even brighter and a strange force descended from the sky. Although the moon pupil powerhouses were all martial sovereigns, they did not seem to have their own will. Under the strange power, the aura on their bodies rose rapidly, and their violent aura became stronger and stronger. Jiang Churen's expression changed. He slashed out with his Gomang silver blade and immediately opened up a path that led straight to the sky. The power in his body continued to rise as he walked toward the sky. With every step he took, there was an unknown fire under his feet that burned in all directions, shaking away all the moon pupil powerhouses. Tianxi's heart trembled. Jiang Churen had already integrated with heaven and earth. Every movement of his could follow the rules of this world. He was only one step away from the 10 directions divine realm. Those moon pupil elites could not stop him at all. The Gomang in Jiang Churen's hand moved, and a strange phenomenon occurred. Rotten silver light shone through the sky, and it was as if the world was in heaven. The giant silver rhinoceros shadow also finally landed and merged with his body. A huge silver light burst out like fireworks in the endless darkness. The snow falls on the West Mountain, and the sun and moon are present on the Xuanmang Mountain. Han Yen of the Eastern Mountain, borrowing the wind and thunder from beyond the 9 heavens. Jiang Churen recited a poem as the silver blade in his hand emitted a crisp sound. A silver river descended from the 9 heavens, washing away all dust and dirt as if it was about to be reborn from the end of the world. Tianxi's expression was stern. He had also seen through Jiang Churen's thoughts. Jiang Churen wanted to break through all the techniques with a single force and force him into the final battle to the death. How can I let you have your way? He held the spear in front of him, and the Maha ancient characters appeared one by one. They rotated around him and formed a golden circular enchantment. As long as he defended well and continued the current situation, he would definitely win, so he was not in a hurry. Tens of thousands of silver lights slashed down from the sky and struck the golden barrier. The sound of metal colliding rang out like thousands of birds chirping. At this moment, the moon pupil powerhouses below were all roaring with anger. One by one, they rushed into the sky and raised their aura to the extreme. They burned their soul power and rushed into the silver sea of blades. Bang! 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 A large number of martial sovereigns self-destructed, and there was no lack of high-level martial sovereigns among them. Each blow caused Jiang Churen to suffer a great backlash. Even though he was the sect master, he could not withstand such a torment. Jiang Churen flipped his left hand and a red light rose. Tianxi's pupils contracted as he saw that beneath the crimson light was a crimson jade seal with mountains, rivers, birds, and beasts carved on it. All of them manifested at this moment and flew around the jade seal. The bottom part of the jade seal was smooth and red without any chiseling. In Jiang Churen's hand, the jade seal turned into a palm force and slammed out. A huge Maha ancient character was printed in the sky and spread out in the air. Bang! Bang! The mountains, rivers, birds, and beasts were all formed and devoured the moon pupil martial artists from all directions. After that, the jade seal flipped over and Jiang Churan once again raised a mouthful of true energy and blasted it towards the golden sphere barrier that Tianxi was in. The Maha-ancient character and the silver world overlapped. Ka. 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 A shattering sound rang out from the barrier of the golden sphere, and Tianxi's expression changed drastically. He poured all of his energy into his halberd, but he was still unable to hold on. Bang. With the crisp sound of glass shattering, the golden barrier around Tianxi shattered, turning into thousands of specks of light that slowly glowed in the night sky. The light that shone on Tianxi's face, however, made it appear as if he was deathly pale. It's over, Tianxi. Jiang Churan snorted coldly and instantly pounced forward. Gomang stabbed down and broke the defense of the dagger axe's sharp light. Don't. Suddenly, Yunxiao's cry of surprise rang out over the ground, coming from a distance. However, it was too late. The Gomang silver blade had already pierced through Tianxi's body, and the entire sky instantly fell silent. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The moon pupil martial artists all stood there in a daze. Then, their bodies became fainter and fainter, and they slowly disappeared one by one. When Jiang Churan heard Yunxiao's voice, his heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling, but he could not tell why. It's still an illusion after all. It's impossible to turn illusions into reality in this world. Jiang Churan thought to himself. The aura on Moronju's body was getting weaker and weaker. His eyes were hazy and seemed to be closing. The power of the Gomang silver blade was enough to destroy the strongest physical body, and Moronju was no exception. The blue light on his forehead throbbed even more intensely, as if it was going to be extinguished at any moment. Jiang Churan asked himself in his heart, is everything over? A faint voice suddenly rang in his heart. It was emotionless, empty, and cold. Yes, everything is over. Jiang Churan took in a deep breath of cold air. He felt a chill from head to toe and his eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. He felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. He lowered his head and found a sharp weapon in his heart. It was his Gomang silver blade. His previous slash was actually suicide. How could this be? Cold sweat broke out on Jiang Churan's forehead, and a great pain came from his heart. The aura that had once been at its peak instantly fell. An aura came from Tianxi's body and directly sent him flying far away, throwing a trail of blood into the sky. The blue flower on Tianxi's forehead gradually grew larger, covering the upper half of his face. It exuded boundless energy that reversed time and space, traveling through the past and present. Pfft. Jiang Churan steadied his body and quickly pulled the Gomang out. Blood spurted out from the Gomang and was immediately stopped by a few hand seals. With the strength of his physical body, he would be fine even if his heart was pierced. However, his Yuan force had been exhausted after the last desperate strike. In addition to the heavy injuries on his physical body, he no longer had the strength to fight Tianxi. What happened just now? I clearly pierced your body. Jiang Churan's face turned pale. The silver Gomang blade was extremely destructive. A large amount of it remained in his body, preventing his body from healing. Not only was his elemental force greatly damaged, but his peak martial arts realm was also beginning to shake as if it was about to collapse. Everything is over. Tianxi raised his head slowly, his voice tinged with a hint of fatigue. It was as if the sudden change of events earlier had also exhausted him. The blue crystal flower slowly became smaller after releasing an extremely strong spiritual power and returned to its previous state. It raised its spear, took a step forward, and pointed it at Jiang Churan. Inside the altar, Yunxiao was in extreme pain at the moment. He had forced himself to circulate his essence force to break through to the martial sovereign realm, and finally, the laws of heaven and earth had fallen, constantly striking his golden body, and his indestructible golden body was crumbling inch by inch. Li Yunxiao, what are you doing? In the altar, the demonic dragon seemed to have sensed something and asked in shock. A large amount of blood burst out of Yunxiao's body, and his major aperture acupoints were broken one by one under the laws of heaven and earth, beginning to collapse. Enduring the great pain, Yunxiao stood up from the ground. His eyes were almost popping out of their sockets as he gritted his teeth and said, "You jinx, you never say anything good. This time, you're really right. I'm going to explode." The demonic dragon was shocked. "What are you talking about? Hang in there. You must hang in there. Don't forget that you're the peerless martial sovereign, Gu Feiyang. Ancient your sister. Why didn't you say that when you jinxed it?" Yunxiao's anger surged up, but the fierceness and coldness in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. At the same time, the demonic dragon also felt the chill that came from the depths of his soul. It was a completely unfamiliar and terrifying existence, like a beast that had been sleeping for a long time and was gradually waking up. "Demonic dragon, are you afraid of death? What's wrong?" Yunxiao suddenly became extremely calm and asked out of the blue while the two were still in a state of turmoil. The demonic dragon was taken aback. "I'm just a spirit. I've been dead for God knows how many years. What's there to be afraid of?" The corners of Yunxiao's mouth turned up slightly as a smile appeared on his face. "Then play with me this time. If you die this time, your soul will be scattered." The demonic dragon's heart trembled. All of a sudden, a powerful flame burned from the depths of his soul, growing stronger and stronger. Li Yunxiao, the demon dragon, cried out in horror, "You're crazy, Li Yunxiao. Are you going to burn your own soul?" Yunxiao's face flickered with madness as he said ferociously, "In any case, it doesn't matter if my soul exists or not if I die. You've cultivated the Great Expansion Divine Technique, so perhaps you'll have a chance to reincarnate again." The demon dragon's body trembled violently. Yunxiao softly said, "No need." The demonic dragon's body couldn't help but tremble. On the one hand, burning his soul was extremely harmful to him. On the other hand, the terrifying aura from the depths of his soul had finally rushed up without any regard. At this moment, the strength in Yunxiao's body soared crazily, and the souls of two lives burned in the karmic fire. The moon-like pupils gradually woke up, emitting a peerless fierce light. "Little Yu, be honest. I could seal you back then, and I can do the same now. Quickly stop. If your soul is destroyed, I will also cease to exist. That's why, told you to be more honest." Yunxiao's eyes shone with a fierce light, which mixed with the fierce light, and a very strong spiritual power rushed out of the altar in an instant. In the distance, the Tianxi battle dagger axe was thrust down. He seemed to have noticed something and was suddenly startled. "Not good," he thought in his heart, and the blue light on his forehead suddenly shrank. After a brief moment of shock, the sharp light in Tianxi's hand pierced down even more. If he did not finish off Jiang Churin as soon as possible, there would definitely be more trouble. Swish. Without any obstruction, the sharp light directly pierced through the head of the other party. Jiang Churin's frightened expression instantly froze. His aura completely dissipated, and there was no sign of life left. "Who?" Tianxi breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Now that the biggest problem had been solved, he had nothing to fear even if the lunar pupil awakened in Yunxiao's body. "What?" All of a sudden, Tianxi's pupils contracted as he stared in front of him in shock. Jiang Churin's corpse, which had been hanging on his dagger axe, had disappeared. There was not a single drop of blood on the sharp light. How was that possible? His illusion can actually fool me? Tianxi's face contorted in shock, and he raised his halberd in front of him, looking around vigilantly. All of a sudden, an extremely powerful spiritual force came from the sky, almost taking form. It contained endless roars and anger, wanting to crush everything. Tianxi's heart trembled, but he did not panic. With a wave of his spear, the ancient Maha characters flew out and formed a golden barrier once more, blocking the mental energy. However, to his shock, the golden barrier was actually twisted by the other party's mental force. "Are you Li Yunxiao or Yu Tong?" Tianxi was shocked and bewildered. The spiritual power was as strong as the moon eye, but it did not have the familiar aura of the moon eye. It seemed to belong to Yunxiao. In the sky above the altar in the distance, a figure gradually condensed. With one step, he was so close yet so far away. Along with the figure, a poetic voice slowly descended. A smile on the thousand-year-old wind and clouds. The world flies and shines from the past to the present.